So as you notice, we may do things this year a little bit differently, a little bit out of order. Our Torah reading and our Torah service will take place after we have some time in the lobby. It'll begin at around 11:45 to hear the Torah reading, the Haftarah reading, and to say blessings for healing. This morning, though, I want to share with you just how good it feels to see all of your faces. And if you haven't taken a moment to switch from speaker view to gallery view, this is a great time to see the hundreds of faces singing along, people in your homes, people wherever you are. This is remarkable. And I just want to share how special that feels. And I want to be so grateful to all of those who are working so hard right now and experiencing a whole new way of awe and fear, perhaps, as they are producing our high holiday services. I am so grateful. This summer, we asked you, what will you miss most about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur this year? Knowing that we were in the midst of redesigning, recreating, and yes, reconstructing the days of awe. 95% of you answered being in and with community and family and friends in person. Me too. I asked this question because we really needed to name our losses, because our losses in this moment are huge. And as we were dreaming up these days of awe, it became clearer just how much the belonging element of JRC is at our center. Whether we love putting our arms around each other during Oseh Shalom, or we really don't like to be touched, the fact is, we miss each other. Even if some of us don't even like each other that much, we miss being part of the collective. Last week, I stood alone in our church. I stood there on a Sunday morning to see if I could lead services from that pulpit, that bima, which is so familiar. Turns out Wi-Fi upload speed was not something we'd ever taken into account before. I stood on that bima. I put my hands on the lectern. I looked out over the congregation, the balcony and the pews, and I spoke out loud, and it echoed. I really wanted to ensure a taste of familiarity, the wood and the rose and the place, but it just felt wrong. It felt wrong because you weren't there with me. And it's true. The heart of JRC is not in where we are, but who is with us. Loss is palpable. We are grieving in isolation in this moment. It is not only about physical health and risk and fear, but it's also about mental health and stability. Being alone is not how Judaism was designed. And as we explore ways to experience these services, I realized how much each of us gets, not just from the prayers and the poems and the music and the liturgy and the sermons, but from the feeling in the room. Part of the holiday is being able to greet and smile and fill a space with a collective of people who are holding its traditions and its memories. And it's really hard to do that in an empty room. But one of the only rules about a sanctuary is that it must have a window. We see the window behind our ark in the main sanctuary. There is a window right here in our small sanctuary. And this morning, we are hundreds of windows, 377 of them exactly. I look out through these small windows into small temples and small churches, sacred kitchen tables and living room couches. I see faces and smiles and lips moving and history and newness. And there is a feeling in this room. I don't believe that the antidote to feeling isolated is to get us all together in person and try to replicate the before right now. I just don't. I think this moment calls for something that is far, far greater. This moment calls for innovation and creativity because this moment is different than the before. And perhaps the before didn't work for everyone. This moment was made for Reconstructionist Judaism. I asked the question around Pesach time, what is essential? And it stuck. It became a mantra for decision-making, and oh, so many decisions have been made over the last 6 months for all of us in all of our lives. It became a mantra to guide us from going down the rabbit hole of the extraneous and back into the reality. What is essential? What is essential to mourn, to learn? What is essential to keep sustaining us? What is essential for endurance? And what is essential for a community is very different than what is essential from what meets each individual needs. As Hillel famously wrote, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? If you had asked me to sing Kabbalat Shabbat in my backyard alone, I would have balked. If you'd asked me this time last year whether I would be spiritually moved by sitting on my bedroom floor in pajama pants, a suit jacket, and a talit, and welcoming our teens in as B'nai Mitzvah, I would have been very skeptical. If you had told me last year that I would be alone at the cemetery using my hands to bury one of our members, I would have told you that's not how we do it. Because what I find most essential in Judaism is togetherness, creative harmony, and deep meaning. But who could have imagined? I mean, who could have imagined this moment? I couldn't have, that cacophonous, unmuted Aliyah blessings would be sweet, or that the act of tearing one's own career ribbon in a moment of mourning, black ribbon or not, or just the piece of fabric you had in your hand would feel powerful, or that the dining room table where dinner and homework could take place would be the bima. And imagine, the bima lives in your house now too. The task before us this new year is to take the pieces of Judaism apart and pick out the essential ones. The ikar, the core, the focused element, the part that's been preserved all around even though the vessels and containers have changed. We balance the ambition of our dreams with our real life capacity and our rooted values. We are creative, generative people. We desperately need the wisdom and the comfort that Judaism brings us to fill up our very depleted souls right now. And this year, especially this year, this is not the year to crawl under the covers or to be defeated at home alone, even though I have done that so many times in the last 6 months, and I'm sure you have too. The stakes of our collective soul are just too high. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel once wrote that the role of religion is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I think we all could use some comfort right now and some motivation. What is the essence? What is the ikar that you are seeking today? Can you discern it? What could a new JRC, an essential JRC, together look like? Have a few thoughts. 40 plus members volunteered back in March to call and check in on each other. What if we kept calling? 2 or 3 families in the same grade take pictures of their at-home Jewish art projects and they share them on Flipgrid and they make a new friendship. 9 challah bakers made 65 chai holiday challahs for our members last week alone. I know because a dozen of them came out of my kitchen from my wife who dreamed this project with a small cadre of folks. Others brought flowers. Who else wants to learn to bake? People stand on the block or on the front lawn, distanced, outside, sending love to say Kaddish for a parent who died in a funeral that can't happen right now. What could it look like if everyone at JRC knew that they could make a minyan when they need to? And if they can't right now, that risking to ask for one would result in people heeding the call and showing up. 22 7th graders pass a handmade Torah scroll with the parsha of each classmate sewn into it from household to household. Its mantle bearing the signatures of the latest Jewish adult. It's inviting the member you used to sit next to on Friday night, or maybe in your pew at the church that you only saw once a year, to write postcards with you, or march against racism, or get out the vote, or stand up together. It's reading the same article together on Judaism and racism or spirituality or parenting or democracy and having a chavruta, a JRC member with which to discuss it and share ideas. Your chavruta could be someone you've known all along, someone you're just meeting, or someone with whom you vehemently disagree. And sometimes, if you do it right, your own mind gets changed. It's offering space in your yard or your porch when someone's Wi-Fi goes out and they can't get to school. It's small group tashlich, beach cleanups, nature walks, baking, poetry sharing, outdoor instrumental havdalah, and 15 small member-led activities that are directed by our member passions that are happening starting tomorrow. What if it kept going? It's making small minions in backyards and public parks. It's a pastoral meeting with your clergy wearing masks on a walk by the lake. It's listening to a 3-minute daily spiritual video by one of our clergy or one of our members and starting a conversation. It's recording your own video and sharing what you think and starting a conversation. Build your own sukkah rather than building one at JRC this year. Share plans and technique and decor and invite at least one new person to check it out. Don't have a backyard? Put up curtains with tension rods in your living room and eat on the floor. Or just go outside and look at the stars and call a fellow member while you do it. This moment was made to be reconstructed. We are known for our innovation and creativity, for pushing the boundaries. After all, 99 years ago, we created the bat mitzvah. But what happens when we're all exhausted and we've used up all our energy? That's very real right now. And that's where the together comes in. This isn't what we can each do alone and meet our needs. It's how we can be cooperative. Judaism is meant to be a communal well, like Miriam's in the desert, that is ever filling, gives each of us, and each of us gives from the reserves when we have them, and there's always enough water for those who feel depleted. What's in the well? Fellowship and connection, laughter and presence, listening and respect. What else can we bring? What fills you up? Bring it. JRC together means all of us are needed, and we're needed now. Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, God said, "It is not good for the human being to be alone. I will make a fitting helper for them." And if you'll notice, we are breaking up the organizational work, the programming, the ritual of JRC into many smaller pieces and asking everyone to hold a corner. It feels good to be invited, and we need everyone's hands right now. What part of JRC would you like to hold in your hand so that we don't fall down right now? The reality is, I need you too. As your rabbi, as a human being in this community, I have missed you dearly, and I am deeply grateful for the ways in which you've shown up for me and for each other. And even this extrovert has gotten better at asking for help, because I can't do it all either. God willing, next Rosh Hashanah, we will be back home in our church, but none of us knows for sure. And if there's one thing that the magnitude of these days of awe show us, is that we must play an active role in creation. One idea bounces off of another and the snowball begins. It's our turn now. I want to be dreaming big, creating and stretching. Together, JRC needs to bring our collective boundary pushing to Judaism, to services, to religion, to community, to safety and security. How might we put our hands on rituals? How might we put our feet under our ideals? How might we put our imagination into hope and healing and caretaking so that throughout the year, when there aren't 385 screens on Zoom all at once, there aren't 1,000 of us listening at the same time, we might still feel the power of our beloved community, especially when we don't have the strength ourselves. These small ways, These radical throwing spaghetti at the wall ideas will keep us fresh and will keep us together. What is essential? The we at JRC. JRC together. Ecclesiastes teaches, two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up their fellow. If one forgets, their friend will help them remember. What one misses, the other will help them reveal. So here's to a new year. Here is to creativity. Here's to life, l'chaim. Here's to a year of JRC together in ways that we have yet to dream and in ways that we are all ready to imagine. Shana Tova.